What would you see if you looked into the mirror of your own mind? Carl Jung, one of the greatest explorers of the human psyche, once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." And that is exactly what the Bardo Thodol, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, invites us to do, to look within and discover who we truly are beyond the illusions of the ego and the masks we wear in our daily lives. But why is this important? Because in a world full of distractions and superficialities, many of us live without ever questioning our true nature. We spend our lives chasing external goals, unaware that the greatest journey is the one within. The Bardo Thodol is not just a guide for death, it is a map for life. It shows us that the reality we experience is a construction of the mind, and that by understanding this, we can live more authentically and fully. By the end of this video, you will not only understand the secrets of the Bardo Thodol, but also have practical tools to apply these teachings in your life. You will discover how to face your shadows, integrate your opposites, and finally recognize your true essence. Are you ready to embark on this journey of self-discovery? Then, let's begin. The Bardo Thodol as a map of the psyche. Imagine you are given a map, not an ordinary map, but a guide for a journey we will all take one day, the journey of death. But what if I told you that this map is not just about the end of life, but about the beginning of a deep understanding of who you truly are? This map is the Bardo Thodol, the Tibetan Book of the Dead. And today, we will explore how it can guide us not only in death, but in life. What is the Bardo Thodol? The Bardo Thodol is a sacred text of Tibetan Buddhism written centuries ago. It describes the stages that consciousness goes through after death, known as the Bardo, a transitional state between one life and the next. But as Carl Jung observed, this book is not just a guide for the dead, it is a mirror for the living. It reflects the internal processes of the psyche, those we all face in moments of crisis, transformation, and self-discovery. The universality of symbols. Jung taught us that there are symbols and stories that appear in all cultures, in all eras. He called this the collective unconscious. The Bardo Thodol is filled with these universal symbols. The peaceful and wrathful deities that appear in the Bardo are not unique to Tibet. They are archetypes, deep patterns of the human psyche. As Jung once said, the collective unconscious is like an ocean, and each of us is a wave in that ocean. The Bardo Thodol invites us to dive into that ocean and discover what it reveals about ourselves. Death as a metaphor. But why talk about death? Because like the caterpillar that transforms into a butterfly, death is a powerful metaphor for transformation. Jung wrote, "Death is not the opposite of life, but a part of it." In the Bardo Thodol, death is not the end, but a portal to a new understanding. And this does not only apply to physical death. How many times in our lives do we face little deaths, the end of a relationship, a career, or a phase of life? These deaths are opportunities to be reborn, to discover who we are beyond the masks we wear. The purpose of the book, the purpose of the Bardo Thodol, is not to frighten us with death, but to prepare us for life. It teaches us to face our shadows, recognize our illusions, and discover our true essence. As Jung said in one of his lesser-known quotes, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens." So I ask you, are you ready to look within and discover who you truly are? The journey of the Bardo and individuation. Imagine you are on a journey. Not an ordinary journey, but an adventure that takes you to the heart of yourself. This journey has many names. For Tibetans, it is the Bardo. For Carl Jung, it is individuation. Both are maps to the same unknown land. the territory of the human psyche. Today, we will explore how the journey of the Bardo and individuation intertwine, revealing paths to who you truly are. What is individuation? Carl Jung called individuation the process of becoming who you truly are. It is not about being perfect, but about being whole. It is a journey of integration, where you bring together all parts of yourself, the light and the shadows, the fears and the desires. As Jung once said, individuation is the process of differentiating oneself to become what one is. It is a journey we are all called to take, consciously or not. Parallels between the Bardo and individuation. The Bardo Thodol describes a journey through stages: the Bardo of death, the Bardo of reality, and the Bardo of rebirth. Each stage is a mirror for the journey of individuation. In the beginning, there is the confrontation with the illusions of the ego, represented by the peaceful deities. Then comes the encounter with the shadows, symbolized by the wrathful deities. And finally, there is the possibility of liberation, of becoming whole. Jung saw in this a direct parallel to the process of individuation, where we face our own illusions and shadows to achieve wholeness. The importance of facing the shadow. Jung taught us that the shadow is the part of ourselves we reject, hide, or deny. It is our fears, angers, and impulses that we do not want to admit. In the Bardo Thodol, the wrathful deities represent this shadow. They are frightening, but as Jung said, the shadow is not just an enemy, it is also a great teacher. Facing the shadow is essential for individuation. It is only by integrating these denied parts that we can become whole. And you, have you ever stopped to think about what your shadows are? The journey of the Bardo and individuation are, at their core, the same journey. A trip to the heart of who you truly are. It is a journey that requires courage, as it involves facing illusions and shadows. But, as Jung reminds us, who looks inside awakens. So, I ask you, are you ready to embark on this journey? What do you hope to find at the depths of yourself? The collective unconscious and the visions of the Bardo. Imagine your mind is like a mirror. Everything you see, feel, and experience is a reflection in that mirror. But what if I told you there is something behind that mirror? Something we all share but few can see. Carl Jung called this the collective unconscious, and in the Bardo Thodol, the visions that appear in the Bardo are precisely reflections of this collective unconscious. Today, we will explore what this means and how these visions reveal who you truly are. What is the collective unconscious? The collective unconscious is one of Carl Jung's most fascinating ideas. It is like a deep ocean where we are all connected. In this ocean, there are universal patterns, which Jung called archetypes. They are symbols and stories that appear in all cultures, in all eras. As Jung said, the collective unconscious is the repository of all human experience from the dawn of humanity. And in the Bardo Thodol, these archetypes come to life in the visions of the Bardo. The visions of the Bardo as archetypes. The peaceful and wrathful deities that appear in the Bardo are not unique to Tibet. They are archetypes, universal patterns of the human psyche. For example, the peaceful deities can be compared to figures of wisdom and compassion that appear in other traditions, such as the Virgin Mary in Christianity or Kuan Yin in Chinese Buddhism. The wrathful deities, on the other hand, resemble figures like the Egyptian god Seth or the Greek Hades, representations of chaos, destruction, and transformation. As Jung observed, archetypes are like underground rivers flowing through the psyche of us all. And in the Bardo, these rivers rise to the surface. The mind as the creator of reality. Jung taught us that the mind does not just perceive reality, but also creates it. He called this projection. In the Bardo Thodol, the visions that appear in the Bardo are projections of the mind. They reflect the internal contents of the psyche, both the luminous and the shadowy aspects. As Jung said in one of his lesser-known quotes, reality is a construction of the mind, and the mind is a reflection of the collective unconscious. This means that by facing the visions of the Bardo, you are in fact facing yourself. And have you ever stopped to think how your mind creates your reality? The visions of the Bardo are more than frightening or comforting images. They are mirrors of the psyche. They show us that reality is a construction of the mind, and that by understanding this construction, we can discover who we truly are. Pause for a moment. Take a deep breath. Reflect. How does your mind create your reality? What archetypes are present in your life, guiding your choices and your visions? The nature of reality and the illusion of the ego. Imagine you are in a dream. In the dream, everything seems real, the people, the places, the emotions. But when you wake up, you realize it was all a creation of your mind. Now, what if I told you that the life you are living now is also a kind of dream, a dream created by your mind? In the Bardo Thodol, this idea is central. Reality is a projection of the mind, and the ego is the protagonist of this dream. Today, we will explore how the Bardo Thodol reveals the illusory nature of reality and the ego, and what this means for who you truly are. Reality as a projection of the mind. Carl Jung taught us that the mind does not just perceive reality, but also creates it. He called this projection. In the Bardo Thodol, the visions that appear in the Bardo are projections of the mind. They reflect the internal contents of the psyche, both the luminous and the shadowy aspects. As Jung said, reality is a construction of the mind, and the mind is a reflection of the collective unconscious. This means that by facing the visions of the Bardo, you are in fact facing yourself. And have you ever stopped to think how your mind creates your reality, the ego and its dissolution? The ego is the identity we build throughout our lives. It is the mask we wear to present ourselves to the world. But in the Bardo Thodol, we learn that the ego is a temporary illusion. During the stages of the Bardo, the ego dissolves, revealing a deeper essence. As Jung observed, the ego is like the moon. It has no light of its own, but reflects the light of the self. The dissolution of the ego is a necessary step for spiritual and psychological liberation. And have you ever stopped to think who you are beyond the ego? Who are we beyond the ego? If the ego is a mask, who are we behind it? In the Bardo Thodol, the true essence is described as pure and limitless consciousness. It is like the sky, vast, open, and always present, even when covered by clouds. Jung called this essence the self, the totality of the psyche, which includes both the conscious and the unconscious. As he said, the self is not only the center, but also the circumference that encompasses both consciousness and the unconscious. Discovering who we are beyond the ego is the most important journey we can undertake. Reality and the ego are constructions of the mind, but who you truly are is beyond these constructions. The Bardo Thodol invites us to transcend the ego and discover our true essence. Now pause for a moment and reflect. Who are you beyond the ego? How can you begin to discover your true essence? Death is a mirror of life. Imagine that death is like a mirror. When you look into it, what do you see? In the Bardo Thodol, death is not the end, but a reflection of life. It shows us who we are, what we value, and what we need to transform. Today, we will explore how death, both physical and the little deaths we face throughout life, can be a powerful mirror for self-knowledge and transformation. Death in the Bardo Thodol. In the Bardo Thodol, death is described as a journey through stages: the bardo of death, the bardo of reality, and the bardo of rebirth. Each stage is a mirror for psychological processes we all face. Physical death is just one of the many transitions we experience. As Carl Jung observed, death is not the opposite of life, but a part of it. And by understanding death, we can better understand life. Little deaths in everyday life. How many times in our lives do we face little deaths? The end of a relationship, the loss of a job, the conclusion of a life phase. These deaths are painful, but they are also opportunities for transformation. In the Bardo Thodol, the visions that appear in the Bardo are mirrors for these little deaths. They show us what we need to let go of and what we need to transform. As Jung said, you cannot cross the sea merely by looking at the waves. We need to dive into our little deaths to be reborn. Preparing for death is preparing for life. The Bardo Thodol teaches us that preparing for death is, in fact, preparing for life. By facing impermanence and transience, we can live with more awareness and presence. Jung reminds us, who looks inside awakens. And by looking within, we can discover what truly matters. Death is a mirror that reflects life, and by facing it, we can live more authentically and fully. Death is not the end, but a mirror that reflects life. It shows us who we are, what we value, and what we need to transform. As Jung reminds us, life is a preparation for death, and death is a preparation for life. So I ask you, what are the little deaths you have faced or are facing? What do you need to let go of to be reborn? The integration of opposites. Imagine life is like a dance between light and shadow. Every step, every movement is an expression of opposites that complement each other. In the Bardo Thodol, this dance is represented by the peaceful and wrathful deities. They are two sides of the same coin, two faces of the human psyche. Today, we will explore how the integration of these opposites can lead us to wholeness and fulfillment. Duality. In the Bardo Thodol. In the Bardo Thodol, the peaceful and wrathful deities represent psychic polarities. The peaceful deities symbolize compassion, wisdom, and light, while the wrathful deities represent fear, anger, and shadow. These polarities are not unique to Tibet. They appear in all traditions. As Carl Jung observed, wholeness is the union of opposites. And in the Bardo, this union is essential for liberation, the importance of balancing opposites. Jung taught us that the integration of opposites is essential for individuation. It is not about choosing between light and shadow, but about balancing both. As he said, the shadow is not just an enemy, it is also a great teacher. By integrating our luminous and shadowy aspects, we can achieve wholeness. And you? Have you ever stopped to think how to balance opposites in your life? Practical examples of integration. Let's think of practical examples. Imagine someone who has always been very rational and controlled, but when facing a crisis, discovers the importance of intuition and flexibility. This is the integration of opposites in action. Or think of someone who has always avoided conflict, but by facing their shadows, discovers the strength of assertiveness. As Jung reminds us, individuation is the process of differentiating oneself to become what one is. And by integrating opposites, we become more whole. The integration of opposites is essential for wholeness. In the Bardo Thodol, this integration is represented by the journey through the peaceful and wrathful deities. As Jung reminds us, wholeness is the union of opposites. How can you begin to balance opposites in your life? Light and shadow, reason and intuition, life and death, to become more whole. Topic 7, the final liberation, recognizing the true nature. Imagine you are like a bird trapped in a cage. The cage is made of illusions, fears, and attachments. Liberation is the moment you realize the cage was never locked. You were always free. In the Bardo Thodol, this liberation is the recognition of true nature. Today, we will explore what this liberation means and how it can transform your life. Liberation in the Bardo Thodol. In the Bardo Thodol, the final liberation is the moment when the mind recognizes its true nature beyond the illusions of the ego and the visions of the Bardo. It's like waking up from a dream and realizing you were always the dreamer. As Carl Jung observed, liberation is not an escape from reality, but a deeper understanding of it. And by understanding true nature, we can live more fully and authentically. The connection with Jungian psychology. Jung called the totality of the psyche the self. The self is the center and the circumference, encompassing both the conscious and the unconscious. Liberation in the Bardo Thodol resembles the encounter with the self. It is the moment we recognize our true essence. As Jung said, the self is not only the center, but also the circumference that encompasses both consciousness and the unconscious. And by recognizing the self, we can integrate all parts of ourselves. Practical applications. Let's think of practical examples. Imagine someone who has always sought the approval of others, but by recognizing their true nature, discovers that peace lies within. This is liberation in action. Or think of someone who has always avoided conflict, but by facing their shadows, discovers the strength of assertiveness. As Jung reminds us, individuation is the process of differentiating oneself to become what one is. And by recognizing true nature, we become more whole. Final liberation is an ongoing process of self-discovery. In the Bardo Thodol, this liberation is represented by the recognition of true nature. As Jung reminds us, liberation is not an escape from reality, but a deeper understanding of it. What does liberation mean to you? How can you begin to recognize your true nature? Today, we explored together the secrets of the Bardo Thodol and how it reveals who you truly are. We saw that reality is a construction of the mind, that the ego is a temporary illusion, and that true essence lies beyond appearances. We learned that death, both physical and symbolic, is a mirror that reflects life, and that facing our shadows and integrating our opposites is essential for wholeness. Carl Jung reminds us that individuation is the process of differentiating oneself to become what one is. And the Bardo Thodol offers us a map for this journey. It invites us to look within, to face our illusions, and to discover the pure and limitless consciousness that resides within each of us. This is not just a spiritual journey. It is a human journey. It is about living with more awareness, more authenticity, and more fulfillment. And are you ready to continue this journey? If this video resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave your comment. Share your reflections and suggestions for future videos. And if you want to dive deeper into the subject, check out the reading recommendations in the video description. Remember, the greatest adventure you can undertake is the journey within yourself. As Jung said, who looks inside awakens, and are you ready to awaken?